Hi, this is our 2019 Halloween build. Since it's the 40th anniversary of the movie Alien, we built alien eggs. We built 8 of these, 2 prototypes, and then 6 of the final version. 3 of the final version with closed tops and 3 with open tops. Version 1.0, we started with a pretty heavy gauge wire and took a 4-foot tall wire, bent a couple of layers down so that it would kind of make a cone shape, and made it 4 feet in circumference, which looked really weird. 4 feet tall, 4 feet in circumference just wasn't the right dimensions. And so I'll talk a little bit more about that with version 2.0. Once I got it all built and bent and everything, then decided to look for covering, and for version 1.0, sewed together some ground cover fabric and tried to get that to work. And the sewing went pretty well, got it right, and then put it on the wire, and it just looked horrible. It didn't hold the shape of the wire very well, didn't show off the bends that I put in the wire, so just didn't work. So version 1.0, complete failure. Wrong dimensions, wrong covering, and so just gonna grab that and go back to the drawing board. Alright, version 2.0. So this one changed up quite a bit, and so changed the circumference from 4 foot to 6 foot, and started again with the crimping of the wires. And that worked pretty well, got a good shape to it. And instead of ground cover for the covering, decided to use paper mache clay, which is something I found on the internet on a lady's site, the ultimatepapermache.com, I believe is the website. I'll put a link to that down in the description. And turned out pretty good. It's basically a mix of white glue, say Elmer's glue, some joint compound, some saturated toilet paper that's ground up into small little pieces and then dried out and then mixed up with the joint compound and the glue. Took about 20 minutes to make a batch, and a batch would cover about 1/6 of the egg, so it took about six batches to cover the egg. And wasn't too expensive. I mean, you got like $20 for the joint compound, $10 for the glue, and a couple bucks for the toilet paper. I did find that 2-ply toilet paper worked a lot better than single-ply. It was a lot more likely to break down in the water, and so you just kind of let it sit in the water for about 20 minutes, and it would actually start to break down, which made it a really good base for the compound. Alright, so got everything mixed up, and I did my measurements. She's got a couple different ways of doing it. I did it by weight, so got a scale and did it by grams. And really, once you get used to it, you can tell wet weight versus dry weight on the toilet paper pretty easy. So you just have to measure out the beginning dry weight, get it wet, saturate it, and then kind of squeeze it dry and put it in. And turns out pretty good. This first version 1.0 here, I put it on really thick. Don't need it that thick. You'll see in version 1.0 there are places that this stuff's probably about an inch thick, maybe half an inch to an inch thick. On the final versions of the eggs, we ended up going with just a 1/4 inch, maybe even 1/8 inch to a 1/4 inch all the way around. Alright, so this is a lot of mixing, so we'll just kind of fast forward through this. Takes about 2 minutes of actual mixing time, so you've got to saturate the toilet paper, then I put it into a juice mixer, and that shredded it into little bitty pieces, and then squeezed it out, and then poured the right amounts of glue in with a big glob of joint compound that was the right weight measurement. And then at that point you mix it up for 2 minutes. And one of the keys is to keep a bucket of water close by because that joint compound stuff dries out really quick. So just throw everything in the water, keep it all wet, because otherwise cleanup is a nightmare. Alright, so here we are in the egg. And for the first version, I used just newspaper as a barrier between the fencing and the clay. But on version 2.0, version 3.0, because I guess this is version 2.0. On version 3.0, we ended up going with more of a paper mache, so we actually put the newspaper, coated it with a mixture of water and Elmer's glue, and that worked really well. So just school glue and water, about a 50-50 ratio, and that hardens the paper enough that the clay will stick to it really well and hold the form. Okay, I used a trowel to smooth out this version, but the version 3.0, my friend came up with a lot better method. He basically put on rubber gloves and used water, and with the wet glove method, you could actually get it a lot smoother. And you could go a lot thinner, so you didn't have to, and it was a lot easier to clean up. You weren't cleaning up a trowel, you were just tossing a couple of gloves. And at this point, the really important part, clean all of your tools thoroughly, because if you get any of that joint compound on anything, it will stick there forever. So I know Elmer's glue seems pretty easy to clean off. Toilet paper should be pretty easy to clean off, but yeah, that joint compound part of it is pretty brutal on the cleaning process. So clean up. And then once it was finished, it was a little bit bigger than expected. So the first one I made was 4 feet tall. Went back and made another prototype out of the same method. It ended up being about 3.5 feet tall, which was about right. And then for that, I went ahead and put lips on it. And so used some black foam that I'd bought at the Habitat for Humanity Restore store, and used a heat gun to form that foam into some wavy lines so it looked a little bit more natural. Cut it with razor blades, went pretty smooth, and then just painted everything with a latex paint, exterior grade of course, and then kind of went over it with some spray paint to give it a little bit of depth. At this point, this was a prototype, I knew it was, so didn't give it any special color treatments or anything, just wanted to kind of give it a little bit of depth. And that one was ready for Easter, and so this is the Easter version of the egg. And then version 3.0. So as I said, version 3.0 is really where it all came together. We switched from using heavy duty wire to chicken wire, which was good in a lot of ways, but chicken wire is so pokey. It leaves lots of little sharp edges that will poke through your gloves. Pretty nasty. Did not like that part of it. But it still had enough integrity, structural integrity, to hold together with just the chicken wire. So that works. So if you're going to do it, I would probably use, I don't know, I would go either way, chicken wire or the heavier gauge wire with the crimping method. With the chicken wire, we did use some pots, and so we had some pots over in the corner, and those are the base that the chicken wire went around. And then we put the paper mache newspaper over the top of that, gave us a nice, good structure. And then, like I said, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch of the paper mache clay smoothed out with the wet rubber gloves, and voila, it looked great. The tops, when you're done, the tops will be open. We used some bowls. We grabbed a variety of bowls from the dollar store and ended up picking one that gave us the correct dome height that we were looking for. And then put some fake lips on there, just molded those in the clay, painted everything up, and it looked great. Then after that, transported them over to my friends, and over there we added fog, and more fog, lots and lots of fog, and then we added lasers. And the lasers made it just look totally alien. It was great. And then worked on the lips. The lip mechanisms were a challenge. We tried several different mechanisms and nothing really worked, so we ended up just using some string to pull the lips open. And so I'll talk about that probably in another video, because we're still finalizing all that. Hope you enjoyed my build video. Have a happy Halloween!